Monday, December 28th, 2015. Derek Davis here with Rob Avino, sportsbettingtoday.us, and Rob Avino Sports. Two games today. Let's look at the first one. Game 237, 238. Pittsburgh and Navy, 2:30 p.m. Eastern. Kickoff for this one, the Military Bowl. Game played at Jack Stevens Field at Navy Marine Corps Memorial Stadium in Annapolis. Navy minus 2.5 and a total of 52.5. In this one, Rob, game opened at Navy minus 3 and a total of 56. Weather for this one, game should be cloudy. Winds from the north-northeast, 10 to 11 miles per hour. Temperatures in the mid-40s. Rob, two teams with not a straight-up bad loss in the bunch. Other than Pittsburgh's last game at Miami, I know they would like to have won that one and should have won that one as a 7-point home favorite. But other than that, for Pittsburgh, losses to Notre Dame, North Carolina, and Iowa. Now that we look back on the season, we see losses to three of the better teams in the country. Definitely three teams that were involved at some point in the conversation for the playoffs. Although that conversation for North Carolina was brief, it would have taken an upset of Clemson, obviously, in the ACC Championship. But nonetheless, still three pretty good teams that beat Pitt this year. As far as the Naval Academy, their two losses this year straight up have come against Notre Dame and Houston. Navy simply didn't have the athletes on defense to keep up with those two teams, Rob, on the scoreboard. Does Pitt have those kind of athletes, Rob? Can Pitt get up and down the field against Navy's defense?
And with Navy, Derek, it's never about the athletes. It's always about the system, at least where offense is concerned. There's a couple of ways to look at this one. It's very contradictory in this contest. If you're the Pittsburgh defense, obviously, the main objective and what we talk about here is, can you handle the Navy option offense and quarterback Keenan Reynolds, who I believe now is 2 touchdowns behind Kenneth Dixon of Louisiana Tech for the all-time NCAA touchdown lead. I think Dixon's performance in La Tech's bowl game has him now 2 touchdowns ahead, so obviously Reynolds will have that mark in his sights. But like I say, there's two ways to look at this game from a Pittsburgh defensive standpoint, whether or not they'll be successful, and each way is extremely contradictory. If you look at it in the positive manner, you say to yourself, you know what, Pittsburgh's had 1 month to get ready to prepare for this Navy option offense. Most teams usually have, a 5-day, 6-day work week to play Navy on Saturday. It's a very short time to prepare for Navy. Certainly Pittsburgh does not have the weapons at their disposal to simulate the Navy ground game. You cannot simulate Keenan Reynolds and the way he executes this option attack, so when they see it on the field, it will look vastly different to what they've been practicing against. But they have had 1 month to try and get their assignments down straight and try to learn where to be and how not to bite on certain aspects of this option attack. If you want to look at it from a negative standpoint, you could look at it negatively very, very easily. Pittsburgh's had a shot already this year at an option attack. Paul Johnson's attack at Georgia Tech, where Georgia Tech in that game ran the ball 40 times for 376 yards, 9.4 per carry. And the good news to that game is that Pittsburgh wound up winning 31-28. But to allow 9.4 a pop, 376 on the ground, on the season, Pittsburgh allows, on average, per game, 126.5 yards rushing. In that one, they allowed 376 to Georgia Tech. Now, you could take that one and say, okay, they've got game film from it. They'll learn from it. They've had an extra month to prepare for this one. They should be in better shape. But then you just go back 1 year to 2014. Pittsburgh played Georgia Tech. They allowed 465 yards rushing in that game. So, in 2 contests against option offenses, last 2 years, Pittsburgh, you're talking about 465 yards rushing allowed, 376 yards rushing allowed. That's a lot of yardage. That's 861 yards in 2 games. That's a lot of yardage. It could lead you to believe that Pittsburgh just isn't built to stop the option attack, especially with somebody like Keenan Reynolds at the helm, and especially with this game being played on Navy's home field, where the Navy fans will be out in full force. So it's going to be a difficult task for Pittsburgh. It's hard to guess which way will be more effective or which way will show up in this particular contest. Will it be that Pittsburgh's learned from film and from time to prepare how to at least control somewhat the option attack, or are they just not built for it? Pat Narduzzi, first-year head coach for Pittsburgh, is a defensive coach by trade. Obviously, been defensive coordinator at Michigan State before taking this job, and he'll try to find a way to get it done, but may not have the personnel to get it done against a team like Navy. Now, while Pittsburgh's had a month to prepare, Navy just played on the 12th of December against Army. That's 16 days ago. So Navy would be a little more in tune, I would say. In these bowl games, we always talk about long layoffs, maybe presenting rust on offenses, rust on defenses. But Navy, out of all the teams, should be in pretty good shape, having just played 16 days ago, and of course here in front of the home crowd, and of course with Reynolds shooting for an NCAA all-time mark as far as touchdown scores are concerned. The other aspect to this Navy offense, if Pittsburgh, which has been devastated by the option rushing attack of Georgia Tech, if they do commit extremely hard to the run, Navy's had a lot of open wide receivers this year. If Keenan Reynolds were more accurate, boy, they'd have a bunch more touchdowns. There have been multiple games this year where he has missed multiple touchdown passes, passes that were so wide open that receivers could have crawled into the end zone. Against SMU especially, I saw that game. He was 2 for 9. He missed a touchdown after touchdown by overthrows or underthrows. Just not a good game for him. And when you look at his season's performance and see that he's completed above only 51% of his passes, you wonder, with the reputation that he has of being a pretty good passer for an option quarterback, and how open his guys have been all season long, how he's only hit 51%. He's had great days too. If this is a great day, then Pittsburgh's secondary could be in deep trouble here. We'll see how it goes. But Pittsburgh has their hands full with the Navy offense. Other side of the coin, the Navy defense against the Pitt offense. With Pittsburgh, you're basically worried about 2 players, freshman running back Kadri Allison, and let's give him a lot of credit. When James Conner went down to start the year, Pittsburgh's star running back, it seemed as if Pittsburgh's rushing attack would go by the wayside, but it didn't happen. Allison, the freshman, came in, 204 carries on the season, 1,048 rushing yards, 5.1 a pop, 10 TDs. Been very good, very explosive for the Pittsburgh Panthers. And of course, Tyler Boyd, wide receiver. He's one of the best in the country. Obviously, a guy who will play on Sundays in the NFL. Fantastic season last season. Duplicated that this season by catching 85 balls for 873 yards. You look at the gap between Pittsburgh receivers and see that Boyd has 85 receptions, and the next closest receiver, J.P. Holtz, has 24 receptions. That's a 61 pass catch difference. And you can see where the ball goes. It goes to Boyd. It goes to Allison. Nate Peterman is the trigger man for this offense. Chad Voitek was the quarterback last year, but lost the job to Peterman. Peterman's been pretty good, 61.5%. There's really nothing special about the Pittsburgh offense, and you wouldn't expect it to be a special-looking offense with Pat Narduzzi, as I mentioned, formerly of Michigan State, their head coach. Bring a lot of Michigan State principles to this team, a lot of grinding and work ethic style offense rather than flashy offense. Jim Chaney, the offensive coordinator, first-year offensive coordinator, has bolted from the job. He's taken the Georgia offensive coordinator position. So, you have a position coach step up here to run the offense. It's, not as hard of a situation for Navy as it could be. Here, the point spread, we've seen the game open 3, pushed down to 2.5. Move back to 3. There's some varying VIGs across the board. I tend to feel like if you can find Navy at less than a field goal, that's the way to go here. Like the Navy team at home, you don't get home situations, pure, true home field situations like you have here very often. There are not a lot of injuries to speak of here. So, from what looks to be a pretty fair and a balanced game on both sides. I think Navy with that option attack probably the way to look. Pittsburgh hasn't shown the ability to stop it yet. Don't know that the month will help them. And as I say, if they overcommit to the run, expect Reynolds to go over the top. Uh, Navy's defense going to have to hold up against Pitt's power. That's always a problem. And turnovers, very unpredictable. But I think Navy -2.5 if you can find it out there, and it is available in a lot of spots. I'd go ahead and play it that way.